10 lakh crore rupees, that is how much we need to spend to bridge the social inequity in India. While a bulk of the spending on social sector schemes will have to continue to come in from the government, that is the government's job and its responsibility, a lot of us need to do our bit as well. CSR initiatives, philanthropy and small contributions from the general public will alleviate some of this inequity. I want to bring your attention to philanthropy specifically because India's rich are not giving enough. According to a Bain & Company report, India's uber-rich will have to increase their donations by 8 times to match their UK and Chinese counterparts and by 13 times to give more than the millionaires and billionaires in the US. Worryingly, the report shows that philanthropic contributions have only grown at an annual rate of a paltry 6% from 16,000 crores in FY15 to 22,000 crores in FY21. But there is a silver lining. India's new age entrepreneurs who've come to gather great wealth in recent times are donating and doing so more generously. The Bain report says tech founders constituted about 8% of the total ultra-high net worth individual wealth. They contributed to 35% of the total donations in FY21. And there seems to be scope to do much more. The IIFL Wealth Hurun India 40 and Under Self-Made Rich List 2022, released just yesterday, saw 14 new entrants, all of whom are startup founders. The cumulative wealth of the entrants in the list has increased by 11% in comparison to last year, currently standing at 1,84,000 crore rupees. A reflection of this trend can be seen in the Young India Philanthropic Pledge. It's an initiative for Indians below the age of 45 with a net worth of over 1,000 crore rupees to publicly pledge 25% or more of their wealth to philanthropy. As part of its first project, YIPP has joined hands with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to provide a funding of 50 crore rupees over a period of 3 years with the aim of modernizing government schools in rural Karnataka. The Young India Philanthropic Pledge is an example of shovel-ready and fully designed vehicles for giving that Bain suggests in its solutions to help India's rich give more. Hello and welcome to Young Turks, India's longest running show on startups and entrepreneurship. I'm Shereen Bhan, and joining me on the show today to talk about the pledge is Nikhil Kamath, the co-founder of Zerodha and True Beacon. He also tops the IIFL Wealth Hurun India 40 and Under Self-Made Rich List for 2022. Also with us, Prashanth Prakash, co-founder and partner at Accel India, Amitabh Shah, the founder of Yuva Unstoppable, and Arnav Kapur, the lead philanthropic partnerships in India and South Asia at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Gentlemen, appreciate you joining us here on the program. Nikhil Kamath, let me start by talking to you because you've topped that list. This takes me back to a conversation that I had with one of India's original startup founders, N.R. Narayanamurthy, and he said that he wishes or he hoped that there was more focus given to a respectability index or a credibility index as opposed to a rich list. So, Nikhil, as someone who's topped the rich list, I want to understand from you what you make of being there to start with. And on the pledge itself, what made you want to sign up for this?
Yeah, so Shireen, firstly, it's virtual money, right? I mean, I think most people have to come to terms with the fact that valuations are extrapolated based on income of today and, probably like kind of considering what the future might be. I don't think that's real money. I don't think we pay too much attention to valuations and lists like this. The reason we started YIPP along with Prashanth, Amitabh and a bunch of other friends from Bangalore is we recognize how lucky many of us have been by virtue of being in Bangalore, by virtue of having an ecosystem where companies like us could thrive. Often, people take credit for the success they've had in their lives, but we were cognizant to the fact that there were many moving factors which worked out for us. We had a bull run in India for the last 10, 15, 20 years. All of this has come together to allow us to, flourish in our own way in whichever industry we might be a part of. Education, we believe, together as a group, is the one criteria that takes away the divide between people who have gotten lucky and people who haven't. And for the underprivileged of today or people who have not had access to what the affluent might have had, we felt for the very first project, the right way to go about it might be to improve government colleges, improve educations and institutions where access is provided to all. Hence, we started this project, and I think we conceived this maybe about a year and a half or 2 years ago, and we've been very lucky to have found the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Arnav is here today. They came along and they kind of aided us in this project, and they've kind of like also supported us in the future projects that YIPP is coming out with. But all in all, we're really kicked that this project has finally taken off. And I feel it will make a significant impact to those 200 or 300 schools that we are trying to change. And the quality of education in each one of these institutions will probably change significantly for the better.
Well, that's good to hear, Nikhil. And yes, I think access to good quality education can be, to a large extent, at least an equalizer, help bridge the wide gap that we see between those who have access to education and those who don't. But Arnav, I want to understand from you, the learnings of what you bring to the table from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, from the Giving Pledge that now, of course, has people signing up from around the world for years now, and how you intend to take that forward as part of what YIPP is trying to do.
The Young India Philanthropic Pledge coming up together, could play a critical role in the large-scale philanthropy in India, which we look at. I think from our perspective, where we've been working, with Nikhil, Prashanth, and the team, how we can bring in the technical expertise on the education side, that we primarily work in the US and we work with, Ashish and CSF in India. How can we focus on systems change? How can we look at improving outcomes, focusing on foundational learning and numeracy, primarily focusing, on the ages of between 3 to 8, which is a large, important area, and also the new education policy, which the government has come out with it looks at. I think from a larger Giving Pledge perspective, so, as you're aware, this was an initiative started 12 years back in 2010 when Bill, Melinda, and Warren came together. At that point of time, it was about 40 people who joined the pledge. And, fast forward now 12 years, we have about 236 pledges from about 28 countries. And if you will look at the trajectory, over the last 12 years or so, we're seeing more people at a younger age who are joining, the Giving Pledge. About 15% of the signatories are under the age of 45. Some examples, we Mark Zuckerberg, Brian Chesky, Melanie Perkins from Canva. So it's very broad-based, very global in that sense. So, very enthused about YIPP and the potential that it could have, for the large-scale philanthropy and improving the various social and development outcomes in the country.
Well, Arnav, thanks very much for giving us the global context as well. And I want to take this conversation now to Prashanth. Prashanth, as Nikhil pointed out, it's been about a year and a half in the making of getting people to sign up for the YIPP, take the pledge. But what was that conversation like when you got together to try and mobilize support, to try and mobilize this group? Take me through the conversations that happened. What were some of the concerns, if any? Did people have concerns about the fact that will we really be able to make an impact? Or did they want to understand how this money was going to be used, what it would be, what it would mean for the ecosystem? Take me through those initial conversations and how it got started.
Shereen, thank you for bringing focus on this really important topic of people starting early in their giving journey. So I think being in Bangalore, we've been fortunate that we have a lot of role models of people like Nandan who started maybe slightly later in their career in terms of active philanthropy. So really the conversation started with me and Nikhil saying, this generation is experiencing so much of wealth and the ability to have that little bit of that disposable income to disposable wealth to give away. So we said, how do we catalyze this? And again, we've been very fortunate that somebody like Nikhil, a self-made billionaire, happened to be in Bangalore. So we said, let's keep it simple. Let's not try to do yet another NGO, right? So that's when we thought, the Gates model was really nice, because you then become more of a kind of a catalyst or a conduit to get people to participate in any form of giving. So we really said it has to be sector agnostic, right? So we're starting with education, but tomorrow we could add environment, we could add something in health and so on. So we said we'll keep it kind of flexible, and people can continue to have their own passion or their own area of focus, and we will find the right kind of projects to be able to do it. And here we said, let us pick projects that are really large and societally can make a huge impact. And NEP is something that everybody was talking about. And the big gap that we saw was that while everybody was talking about NEP, I don't think anybody had really an implementation blueprint, and which required bringing together people from multiple with multiple types of expertise from the edtech world. So people from the civil society, NGOs who have been in education for many, many years. So what we were able to do is actually take that platform approach. So that's the value add that we said we should be able to do, is bring this platform approach to NEP, and so this whole combination of existing old world NGOs, the kind of the new world attitude of startups and edtechs, and of course, the ability of some of us to navigate the government ecosystem. So can we bring all of this together and accelerate a blueprint or a kind of an at-scale prototype for NEP that can be replicated, and something like NEP can become a reality in maybe 3 to 4 years in our country, and not take 5-10 years. So acceleration, so starting early, accelerating this kind of a change, and keeping it flexible. So these were some of the founding principles that we discussed.
Well, that's good to hear, a platform approach to try and accelerate the movement of the national education policy. That's the NEP that Prashanth is talking about. But, let me bring Amitabh in, because in many ways, Amitabh was the catalyst of getting this group of people together here on the program, Young Turks, when we spoke a couple of days ago, and we decided that this is something that is necessary. It's important to put the spotlight on this. So, Amitabh, thanks very much for doing that. It started in Bangalore. The idea now is to make this a nationwide movement. Take me through what the plans are as far as YIPP is concerned.
First of all, thank you, Shereen, for throwing light on this very, very important topic. And, I think the time is right for Yuva across India to start a giving revolution. And we are seeing that in terms of time, talent, or resources. There's so many people who are volunteering to teach math, science, dance, music, English, in many, many schools. We see tons and tons of social activism happening, led by young people across the country. I think I want to share a small story about this girl, Samiksha Dubey from Bihar. She's a second-year BCom student. Her father passed away about 8 years ago. Her younger sister, unfortunately, has to go on dialysis. Her younger brother is in 11th grade and wants to become a doctor. Her mom works in 4 different households right now to make ends meet. And Samiksha was one of our scholarship students at UA Unstoppable. And I asked her, how do you stay positive? How do you stay upbeat? And she said that I teach 3 girls in my neighborhood at least 6 hours a week, maths and science, because that is some way I can contribute. That makes me feel good about myself. That gives me confidence. And I thought, if someone like Samiksha can contribute so much, given the background she has, India is shining with unicorns. India is shining with exceptional investors like Prashanth Prakash. We've got the wisdom to draw from Gates Foundation. Why can't we mobilize young people, not just in Bangalore, but across the country, who have done well? And not just people who have done well themselves, but also people who have inherited wealth. So we have people like Ravi Pai from Century Group, who's a part of this, who's very, very keen on giving back. And what I've realized is that when you make giving back something cool to do, what Nikhil, Sujit Kumar of Udan and a lot of us are trying to do, people join hands. and if there is a sustainable, measurable impact that they see, I think it becomes a lot easier. So soon, Shereen, and you are also quite young. We would love to have you as a part of the YIPP team in some way to mobilize more young people to give back. We definitely see this spreading to Bombay, Delhi, Ahmedabad.
Unfortunately, the net worth threshold I won't ever meet, Amitabh.
Well, we are going to induct people from all walks of life who care, who are compassionate, and believe in building a stronger India. And you definitely qualify there. We all bring in different skills. I'm from the NGO sector, so I'm a part of it. So why not?
Nikhil, I want to come back to talk about something that Amitabh just touched upon, making giving cool. It's interesting because this goes back to a conversation that we were having with Nitin and how he was talking about the inspiration for the decision to look at business, to look at life differently, was based on what he saw with Patagonia. And recently, we've seen the Patagonia founder take a fairly bold step in terms of what they intend to do with the business and how they intend to give back to society. So, how do you take this message that it's not just about valuation, but it's about value creation, and it's also about impact and giving back?
So, Shereen, it's strange, but somehow I feel Bangalore is kind of figuring this thing out. My friend circle in Bangalore, for example, be it Prashanth or Amitabh or the bunch of people who hang out together, society has come to a point today that if you're driving a fancy gas guzzling car, people no longer look at you in that group and they think that, it's such a nice car. People are like, what is wrong with this guy and why is he doing that? Organically, I think the younger generation, I'm not even considering myself, I'm 36 today, but if you talk about people who are 20 and 80, between the age group of 16 to 25, these guys are a lot more woke than even my generation. So things are changing organically, and I think that trend is exaggerated in Bangalore in many ways. Capitalism, in the way that it has worked in the last many decades, I still feel like is the best model out there compared to socialism, communism, or whatever else might have been there in the past. But for capitalism to truly work going forward, it would probably have to kind of like modify into some kind of benevolent capitalism where there is a lot more distribution happening at the top. And I think people have to understand that, and people have to become cognizant to that. Even if we are able to get people to the point where Bangalore is today in other cities in India, as a first step, I think is a big challenge, but B, I think the impact will be tremendous. We have to change the narrative of hoarding wealth or one person having a lot of wealth is cool, to kind of being a part of the community and contributing and trying to make a change, to making that cool. And I think not just in India, internationally even, like we have Arnav from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. I think he's testament to that. Like you might find an American today who has more money than Bill, but people value, respect, and look up to Bill a lot more. And even Amitabh for that matter. Amitabh is from a affluent family, went to Yale, could have joined his family business, but he has left all of that and he works 16, 18 hours a day on 100 different projects like this. And, he's relentless. Like each time I meet Amitabh, he's like in Bangalore at 11 p.m., going to Ahmedabad at 1 a.m. And I keep asking him, what is the driving factor for you? But his need to make a change and to, create impact in any way possible is extremely inspiring. And I think the more stories like this get told, the more the youngsters will, pick this up. And it's not about the quantum of money one gives. I think one could easily argue that people like us who have gotten lucky and have been blessed, it's easier for us to give a larger chunk of money than for somebody who is just starting off or who has not gotten as lucky to give one fraction of that money. So I think it's not about the quantum of money somebody is giving or the quantum of effort and time people are giving. The idea is to get more people to participate. And if enough people participate, I think this will become a movement of its own and create significant impact.
Prashanth, what I want to address with you is here we're talking about individuals like Nikhil, yourself, Amitabh and Arnav, playing the path that you are to try and give back in whatever way possible. But what about behavioral change, corporate behavioral change as an investor within your portfolio companies? We've seen toxic corporate culture, not just in large corporates, but also within the startup ecosystem, largely driven by the fact that there's been so much money that's come in so quickly to many of those companies. How do you get, at an organizational level, to inculcate better behavior, to respect and value values and money? I mean, this is venture capital funding. Of course, Nikhil doesn't have any. But how do you change the attitude and the behavior to money that the startup ecosystem is dealing with?
Very good question, Shereen. And of course, it's a big, 2 years of lots of money coming into our ecosystem. And it did create some bad behavior, like you mentioned. But I think one approach we have taken, and I think this was Nikhil's idea, is that can we have a more informal approach to how we engage and talk to these people? So it's almost been like an informal club kind of approach where we have had smaller groups of people meet almost every month, and Nikhil facilitates some of this, Amitabh facilitates some of this. We've actually done this now in 4 or 5 cities. And we kind of show them, this other approach, or other folks actually taking this path, right? So the more and more they see that entrepreneurs are doing this, and it is giving them a lot of following this as their passion and adding it to whatever they're doing with work. But here I will also tell you that we do find a challenge that a lot of them are really their biggest kind of negative thing on this is we don't have the mind space today to think about it, right? We are so busy at work, we are so busy with our startup. Maybe we look at it 5-10 years from now, right? That's the standard. So I think that we have gotten better and better in saying, you know what, start small, start this journey, experiment, like everything else you do in your startup world. Just try this out, and and like I said, just getting these informal groups have become bigger and bigger.
Gentlemen, congratulations, and thanks for making a beginning and a start. And we hope that you will be able to build on this further. Appreciate you joining us here today to talk about this on Young Turks. Nikhil, Prashanth, Amitabh, and Arnav, appreciate your time. We will take a break.